The Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, is trying to allay concerns about funding certainty for the National Disability Insurance Scheme. The government has confirmed it is scrapping its proposed Medicare levy hike that it said was necessary to prevent a funding shortfall for the Disability Services Program.
Disability advocates, including Paralympian Kurt Fearnley, argue the scheme shouldn't be used as a political football. But the government says Australia's economic growth has negated the need for a tax increase. Well, let's get more on this. And we're talking with Jane Prentice, Assistant Minister for Social Services and Disability Services. Jane Prentice, welcome to Weekend Breakfast again.
Good morning.
So, how will you fund the NDIS in the years ahead?
Well, the good news is that it's the strong economic management of the coalition government that has resulted in a much better bottom line than had been previously indicated. And what we see, I'll just go back for your viewers, Andrew, with a quick potted history. 2013, Everybody Counts campaign came up with NDIS and it had bipartisan support. Julia Gillard, the Prime Minister of the day, said, let's fund it with 0.5% of an increase in the Medicare levy. And she said, this will only do 55% of the funding. We need to look for other ways to have savings and meet the other costs. That received bipartisan support. We had a change of government. The coalition government put up savings to the Senate, which were rejected by Labor and the Greens. So we had various models to try and raise those extra funds that we needed. And Christian Porter, the then Minister, put up the plan that another 0.5% increase would result in full funding. Now, the challenge there is that Labor and Greens continually blocked that. And I think it was Albert Einstein, was it, who said the definition of madness or whatever is to keep putting up the same thing, to keep doing the same thing and expect a different outcome. So Scott Morrison said, this is not going to happen. We need to give certainty to the disability sector, to the mums and dads, to the carers, to the people with disability. We have been fortunate because of our record economic growth. We have got a much better bottom line than we expected, and this money I will take and give to NDIS so that we can give certainty to those mums and dads, to the people with disability. And that's what we're seeing today.
The advocates for the NDIS and for those with disabilities are saying it's exactly what it doesn't give. It does not give certainty because the funding is now subject to the vagaries of the economy.
No, well, it's $8.6 billion, which is not just 1 year's funding, that's several years' funding. And the Treasurer has said that he will detail in the budget how that will give permanent future certainty for the funding of NDIS.
But isn't it not subject to the way that the economy is travelling? That's certainly the point the Treasurer has made, that the economy has ticked up, therefore there is not the need for that levy. What, though, when the economy starts trailing downwards?
Well, the Treasurer says he'll explain it in the budget, but what he's saying is the money he's putting in now will, going forward, will give us certainty for the continuing funding of NDIS.
Yes, but if you have a contraction in the economy, in economic growth, how are you going to fund that in the years ahead?
Well, that's his story to tell on budget night, but he has assured me that there is certainty there, and this is why the funding, the $8.6 billion, isn't just 1 year's contribution, that's going forward, and he has assured us that this will give certainty to the sector. So I'm sure it'll be a good news budget on Tuesday week.
If you get your wish and you get the corporate tax cuts as well as possibly personal income tax through Parliament, where does this leave the position as far as, I mean, does it not weaken your overall revenue position, perhaps putting further pressure on the NDIS funding?
No, look, the coalition government has delivered absolutely record economic growth. We've seen record jobs growth. The trade deals that we've done have seen a massive boost in the trade figures, in business growth, and the whole economy is so much stronger. Combined with a very conservative estimate of where we're going to be, the bottom line is just so much better than we expected. And that's because of the good management of the coalition government, because we're getting on with the job. And that's why, at a time when, while we've got record economic growth, we have got high cost of living pressures, and we haven't had the wages growth that possibly people were looking for, Scott Morrison has said, quite understandably, now is not the time to introduce a new tax. We're a coalition government that believes in lower tax, but because of our economic management, because of what we've achieved, we now have the funds on the bottom line to take and give to NDIS to look after those vulnerable people in our community.
All right, well, many of those vulnerable people, and certainly the advocates of the NDIS, are disagreeing with you, saying it does not provide that certainty. And as far as the costs going forward, is there a concern there that there are a higher than expected number of children, for instance, entering the scheme, and that's putting further cost pressures on the NDIS, which will need to be funded?
No, I can honestly say that the number of people coming into the scheme, the number of children coming in, are in line with the predicted figures. So far we're pretty much on track. Clearly, we'd like to make the pathway into the planning process a bit smoother. We've had a few hiccups there, but we're completely within budget, we're completely within our figures. And I've said before, you know, there are examples of where we're actually saving money by supporting people to have their individual choice and control. And I use the example of the young man whose family had given him a car and he asked NDIS to modify it for him. So he used to have a carer every morning and every afternoon to take him to work and get him home again. He now takes himself. So at the end of the day, it was actually a cost reduction, but we empowered an individual with a disability to have choice and control over their life. And so there's so many good stories about where the NDIS is delivering those individual benefits. And so to just say the costs are going up or down is not accurate, and we're actually completely within budget.
So you feel as though you can accurately forecast the number of people coming onto the scheme, certainly as far as children is concerned, because there is some prediction there that there will be a greater than expected number of children coming into the scheme in the next 2 or 3 years.
Well, not that has been predicted. We're within our figures. Don't forget, with children up to 6 years of age, we have that early childhood, early intervention program. And in Queensland, our partner in that is Bush Kids, and they're doing a great job. So I don't know if people are getting confused with the fact that they get more intensive support in that age group, because quite a few of them with that early intervention can then go back into mainstream education and other programs and not need the specialised support.
Jane Prentice, just very quickly, yes or no, will you be cutting the disability support pension?
Well, that's, I think we wait and hear, but no.
No, in the budget.
Oh, sorry, I'm not making... Oh, wow, I'll get into trouble. No, I'm not making any budget announcements, Andrew. That's all for Scott Morrison.
Well, the point being, would you likely to sacrifice that to fund the NDIS?
Oh, no, no. He won't be sacrificed. He has found $8.6 billion of savings in the bottom line because of our economic management, because of the growth in the economy, and that is the money he's put into NDIS. He's not taking from other places to put into NDIS. That is a benefit of strong coalition government economic management.
Jane Prentice, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Andrew.